where some dealers get it wrong is you do have to have a spokesperson for your brand. It can maybe be one person, maybe be two people, but what I'm trying to work with my managers on and what I'm trying to demonstrate is, you can grow something on your own. You can put your name, image, and likeness out there. And so if we can build our store's brand pages around one individual, maybe a service manager and a technician, and they're doing tech tips or something, every day or whenever it is, that the customers are going to want to come there and service their car because they feel like they have a connection. And that's what social media does. It puts the connection between the people.
Welcome to the Strategy with Jason podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Golden Wrench Podcast, where I get to talk to anybody and everybody I want to talk to when it comes to fixed ops. And I got a cool guest today. I do. I'm excited about getting into some of our topics. We've talked a little bit about this backstage, and there's some timely and great topics. But hey, we can't do cool content like this without our sponsors. And here's a quick message from our sponsor.
For years, I've been saying that you have to process your way to profitability, and no one knows that better than the folks at Repair 360. You all know how important it is to have a fast, streamlined used car reconditioning process. Remember, time kills profit. Getting a used car frontline ready in less time while providing transparent communication between departments is what Repair 360 is all about. With Repair 360's automated used car recon manager, you will drive recon times down while giving sales the visibility they need to stop complaining. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding about that part. Anyways, you have to check out their website at repair360.com and see how they can revolutionize your reconditioning process.
All right, guys. Like I said, I got a great guest today. I have the one, I've been told, the oh-so-famous Austin Conroy with me. Austin, what's up, man? How you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jason.
Is that okay? Was that intro okay? Did I do?
Yeah, I mean, there's fake accounts now out there of me, so I would say yes, the one and only. This is the real deal right here.
You are the one and only dealer plate guy. That's
yeah.
you. That's you. Did you hear that,
Guilty.
guys? You got the dealer plate guy on the show today. Look at that.
Yeah. Guilty of charge. Yeah.
You have to tell me, how did that start? Like, how did the dealer plate guy start?
Yeah, so it goes back a little ways. Our dealer group really wants to lean into social media and, lean into that presence. And so we actually had kind of an online beef with Russ Flips Whips a long time ago with Bob Roman Toyota.
Yeah.
He actually showed up to the dealership and we're like, hey, well, since you're here, would you train our guys? And he was, awesome to be able to do that. And then we were actually going to have him come out to a Schaumburg Honda store that we had, which is the world's largest Honda store. Mm-hmm. And they were doing a grand opening. And so I said, you know what? I would love to start my own account so that when I'm with Russ again, I can create a video with him and actually post it on my own account. And so that's how it started. It was like mid-September of last year. And the thing grew legs really quick. And my third video, skit that I did went viral. And, since then, it's just been a second job that I never wanted.
Second job that you never wanted, right? And this is in addition to your daily job of working fixed ops. Now, actually, you know what? Before that is actually where I want to start. That's what I want to do. I want to, I like kicking off these podcasts with a little origin story. Because I'm just fundamentally fascinated. I don't believe anybody just wakes up one day and goes, yeah, fixed ops. That's where I want to go build a career. So let's start there, Austin. I'm super curious. How in the world did you get started in this crazy world we call the automotive industry?
Yeah, so you'll be fascinated by I think two parts of the story. One, how did I get into it? And then the other one is how did I get into fixed ops? Because like a good car dealer employee, I started in sales. Everyone starts in sales. You never stop selling cars, no matter what role you're in. If you're a good dealer employee. And so, I went to college and played on a golf team with Trey Rohrman, and his grandfather just happened to own and start the Rohrman Auto Group. And so after I'd graduated, Trey every year kept saying, come work for me, come work for me, come work with me. Long story short, he finally broke me down, as any good car salesman does. And I started selling cars, and, my journey, quickly took off. As what I love about the car business is if you get in and perform and you're entrepreneurial in any way and you're with a good group, they will find other positions for you and elevate. And so about 3 years into the business, I was a finance manager, had been a finance manager for about a year, did not love it. I loved roles that are a little bit more team concept, a little bit more leadership. And so I actually went to bed a finance manager and I woke up a service manager. That's how I got into fixed ops.
That must have been some bender, man. Go in one night, come out the next as another. I love it. That's absolutely
something
awesome.
that's crazier is I am not a car guy.
Oh,
So this
no.
is the crazier part. I'm not a car guy. I had never written a repair order in my life. If you asked me to put a car on a lift, I wouldn't be able to do it at that point. Still probably a little uneasy doing it, but yeah, so it's been a wild ride. That's kind of how, a lot of things in my life happen, I feel like, is, I just like being thrown into situations and figure it out. So perfect for the car business.
Perfect for the car business. But you know what, actually, and I'm glad that you said that, and then that you're willing to kind of admit that too, right? Because I think sometimes people are afraid of saying just hey, I wasn't really like, this wasn't my thing, but I kind of got into it, right? And because you know what, just because you're a technician does not mean you're necessarily, or just because you're a mechanic doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be good in the fixed ops side, right? I mean, look, we do call it the service department. Keyword being service, right? If you don't have that, I guess, that intent to want to serve others as just kind of a natural part of being inside of you, I'm not saying you can't be a service manager. You just more than likely won't flourish nearly as much. So it doesn't surprise me that you're not necessarily a car guy, but I'm going to assume that you're definitely a people person. Would I be?
Yeah. Yeah. So my jobs growing up, I actually worked at country clubs. And so I'm a big golfer, and like my family couldn't afford to be members at the country club. So I thought, what's the next best thing is I'll work at one and I'll get the free golf. And so, through that, I learned so much about customer service. I mean, I had managers there that at the country club, your pencil had to be facing the correct way, and the country club's name had to be facing out. The towels have to be perfectly in there. The tees have to be stocked. All the members have bag storage where they store their golf clubs. And so I had up to 650 numbers memorized at any given time and where that member's clubs were, because if they show up, you got to know very quickly where the clubs are to get them. So, it was kind of some of those attention to detail, customer service. I mean, there are things that went wrong. People had very high expectations at the country club that I worked at. And so those were all principles I look back on in my life and was like, okay, like, you're right. I'm not a car guy, but I know how to serve people, and it was something that I was trained to do, and so it's kind of just a natural outpouring of that.
No, and that makes sense. Look, I've met a lot of people. In fact, actually, I've hired a lot of people from some hospitality type industry, either be in hotels or country clubs. 100% makes sense. Bartenders, waitresses. I've hired, and they flourished. They flourished in that because, again, like it doesn't matter how good of a salesperson you are. It doesn't matter necessarily how good of a manager where you can actually manage, all these different arms and stuff like that. If you just don't have that desire to want to serve people and connect with them in the smallest way, then you just won't do that. I mean, I love the fact that you're from a country club. I love the fact that you had to remember those numbers. And I imagine you actually probably still remember some of the numbers and the names associated with those numbers, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, you do. I knew it.
Takes up a lot of brain space.
It does. But people like us were like that. We just kind of, we have that kind of pre-built into us. And then one of the things I find is that it's very impactful. Someone's name is incredibly impactful, right? And when you're able to remember someone's name and when they come back, to you is huge, and it's one of the things that, I try to teach my service advisors. It's like to really try to push to really know anything and everything that they could possibly about these. And we're going to get into that because one of our topics today is leadership. And I think that is one of the indicators of a good leader, all right, is their ability to kind of hyper personalize the experience in some way or form. And it can just be something as simple as knowing someone's name. But what I want to do is I want to start off our conversation. I'm sure we're going to find some rabbit holes because, Austin, I'm really good at finding rabbit holes. But I want to start off with kind of social media, right? Because you started kind of telling me a little bit how you met Russ and you kind of got into this. And, I think the art of the storytelling aspect of social media has kind of faded away a little bit. I think as an industry, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, as an industry, I think we gravitated towards the media part of social media, but we forget that there's a word before it, and it is to be social. And to be social is to connect with people. We connect people through storytelling. And it's not just say, hey, we're a service department, we're open. We got to storytell this. Can you kind of tell me a little bit about your journey kind of into social media and how you think it can impact fixed ops departments?
Yeah, I mean, I think for a dealership as a whole, you have to get into social media no matter what you do. And so, my journey really started. It was about a year and a half ago, and this video is still up on my LinkedIn. I run as a fixed ops director. I have 5 stores that I help oversee in a collision center, and so probably the biggest store I have is the one that I was a service manager at. It's a Toyota store here in Lafayette, and at the time we had a manager change, and I don't have any candidates to be a manager at the time, and so. It was really on me to find somebody, and I was very desperate. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to make the wrong hire, so I'm going to sit in this seat for as long as it takes. And I'm just sitting there, and the Toyota store from the sales side had started this TikTok channel. And so I did a couple skits, and I thought, what if we shot an MTV Cribs style video? Because this dealership is really nice. And there's a play area, there's saltwater fish tanks. It's 60,000 square feet.
Oh my gosh, I remember this. I remember seeing this now. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and so I did this MTV Cribs video, and I got 13 resumes from this video. I mean, at the time, I had done nothing on social media. This was literally I am so desperate that I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I do this Cribs video, which looking back on it, I need to remake it because I'm like, I would do it so much better. But I think the point of it is you have to start somewhere. Exactly. And people try to be perfect. And people like myself, like I will stop myself from acting because I want it to be perfect. But that video is a perfect example of just put it out there. It's imperfectly perfect. I got 13 resumes off of it. People still talk about it to this day. That was really my start, I would say, in social media. Now, fast forward, we've done a lot since then. Fast forward to like last year in September when I really started to grow, I guess, my own personal brand on social media. And this is where a lot of people get it wrong, and I think that, Russ has been such a great mentor to me. And if I give him credit for everything I say, which I will, but I'm just going to do it once and say, I give Russ credit for, all the tips that he gave me. So then I don't have to say it the rest of the podcast. But, one of the things that he said that stuck with me so much is social media, you have to give more than you receive. And so you see a lot of these dealerships out there that are saying, oh, buy this car, buy this car, buy this car, buy this car, do this. We have this sale, we have this. People are not going to follow that account. They don't care. But if someone's saying, hey, here's the best way to buy a car. Hey, here's actually how long you need to change your oil. Hey, here are the other services that are recommended that you need to buy. Hey, here's an extended warranty. Here's how to get it to cover your repair. Like if you're providing value, that's one way to value is educate. The other way to value would be like skits, which I've really kind of found my niche with some of the funny comedy skits. Eventually I'm going to make them a little bit more educational. But what's really happened for me as a result of that is I'm able to connect with people on that level. And now it opens up so many platforms for me for when I do have a role to hire for. I'm not advertising all the time. Hey, I need a service advisor. I need a technician. I need this. Like I have only done that maybe once.
Sure.
Since I've had the account, but I'm waiting for that right moment to where I can advertise that role. And I've naturally had people reaching out to me. Hey, what are you doing with this? Hey, how would you handle this? Hey, my owners are saying this to me. What do I do? What's your take on gross profit and all these different things? So that's the avenue that social media opens up. But a lot of dealers get it wrong because they don't give, information and try to be educational and establish that relationship with the customers. It's more just, hey, buy this car for me, or come check out this deal, or we're doing this March Madness sale.
Well, it is. I mean, and to be honest with you, it comes back from long years of this weekend only, today. We are having the hugest sale. It just comes from people harnessing their inner McMahon voices and in just wanting to just yell at the top of the voice at someone. But that's not what social media is. To your point, right? You said that, like, social media is not yelling at someone. It is engaging with someone, having a conversation with them. And to be able to engage with them, you need to give them value, right? And you nailed it on the head. We see value, guys. If you're out there watching and listening right now, that if you connect to any brand, or you follow a brand, or you're following someone online right now, hopefully me, it is because they are providing you value. And the value usually comes between what Austin was just talking about. That's education, or entertainment. And if you're really lucky, like how Austin, he actually is able to combine them into what I call edutainment. Austin, I think, no, seriously, I watched your funny ones, and I still find education in the funny ones. And I'll tell you why I find education in them is because as a consumer, I think it sets the stage of the type of individual that I'm going to be dealing with when I come in, the type of experience that I have. Like the fact that you guys have made fun of some things that the customers think are kind of funny, or even the industry thinks is kind of funny, right? Like that does connect with me about it. I'm getting an education as far as like what kind of experience I could expect from you. Have you find consumers giving you kind of that same kind of feedback? Like, I thought this was turned out that way.
So my motto is making fun of an industry I'm trying to change. And I just put that out there one day, and then I'm like, oh shoot, like how am I trying to change it? But you wouldn't believe, when I make fun of situations, how people message me and they're like, man, these could be advisors, customers, service managers, whoever, that fixed ops directors that have been in the business for 30 years that message me and go, man, I never thought it looked like that. But now that I see your video and like actually seeing it for myself, that's terrible. Why do we ask the customers to pull their car in? Why do we have the entire shop take a lunch break at one point? And, for me, it's like, man, I'm just making fun of this because, it's stuff that I feel like shouldn't happen. And then somehow that turns into like education. So one of my favorite ones was the video I did with the technician. A customer goes back to the shop and asks the technician to stay on his lunch break to do the oil change on his car. And it's like, I'm just making fun of, again, the fact that like, and there's some shops in our group that shut down for lunch. I feel like you've forgotten what your true purpose is, and that's serving the customer. And so a customer should be able to walk in at any given time and, be able to get their car serviced. And we shouldn't have to ask people to work overtime or skip their lunches for it. Like, just schedule it. So with all the funny skits and all the videos, there tends to be a deeper meaning behind it. But it goes back to kind of the point that I made earlier. I just wanted to reiterate. I think the next iteration of this for my service departments and some content that I want to put out is someone more likely to visit a store for an oil change, whether it's an aftermarket independent or a dealership, because they have an oil change special, or because they saw the service manager on social media talking about how to service your car. 100%. And I think that's the next iteration of it. And where some dealers get it wrong is you do have to have a spokesperson for your brand. It can maybe be one person, maybe be two people. But what I'm trying to work with my managers on, and what I'm trying to demonstrate is, you can grow something on your own. You can put your name, image, and likeness out there. And so if we can build our store's brand pages around one individual, maybe a service manager and a technician, and they're doing tech tips or something, every day or whenever it is, that the customers are going to want to come there and service their car because they feel like they have a connection. And that's what social media does. It puts the connection between the people. It's like a FaceTime call.
100%.
Like anytime I do a video like that, you treat it like a FaceTime call. You're talking to the person through it. Even right now, like I'm pretending like I'm talking to one person on the other side of this computer, which I am. It's you.
It's me.
That's some of the magic of it, and where I feel like it's going to go for our service departments.
And I think just to add to what you were saying there, I think what that ultimately ends up creating is trust. Right? I feel confident. I feel like I can trust this person. I have, look, I've trained many service advisors and salespeople over my entire career. And one of the things I've always kind of trained on is that, look, about 70% of what you're saying is not actually coming out of your mouth. All right. And no better way, all right, to really kind of articulate your passion and your energy and your knowledge around a specific subject than putting it in front of a camera, being on video, right? Because I can see that body language. I can see your eyes. I can see the smile. I can see the authenticity in it, right? It goes a long, long ways. Now, I know dealers out there, you're watching, listening to me and Austin talk right now. They're like, that sounds like a good idea, but I'm going to, here's the bottom line. And I'm going to tell you why you really have to do this, right? From a numbers perspective, right? The average dealership right now is sitting with 16 is a stat I've just recently received, 16 non-franchise entities that are going after your customers right this second. And this can be Joe's Auto Shop, a Midas, a Jiffy Lube, a Quick Lube, a Walmart, a Costco. I mean, heck, almost everybody anymore that's got a shop out there. All right. But a lot of the times in our industry, being when we're franchise dealers, we seem to think that our competition is the other Nissan dealership across the city. That's not the case. There are, on the average, 16 other entities that are going after this business. And guess what? They are telling their story and articulating their story better than you. So,
Or
right? Go ahead. You want to?
Or they're doing SEM and they're driving your cost per click through the roof, which is a meeting I just had today. I mean, it is absolutely insane what it takes to advertise, Honda service, Lafayette, Indiana, and to actually per conversion, like 40 or 50 bucks. Are you kidding me? I can pull out my phone for absolutely free.
Yes.
Record a video, put it on social media, build my brand that way. And guess what the impact of my bottom line is? Nothing other than time, whatever, factor whatever you want in. Here, you'll love this part. So Roman Toyota, they're the most successful dealership in our dealer group when it comes to media. And that's the dealership that my office is here, and I was a service manager. I came up through the ranks here. Always been really progressive kind of dealership. And they have a link tree. You know what a link tree is on your social media? It shows all your links or whatever. There was a month where they do a Black Friday sale, which you've probably seen if you're on TikTok or Instagram or anything. It was the second year that they did it. That link tree during the Black Friday sale outperformed all of the third-party lead providers combined that month.
Surprise me.
Combined. It wasn't even close. I mean, like doubled up the combined of all the third-party. The only one that beat it was the direct website competition. That was the only thing that beat it in terms of, now we've lowered ad spend a lot with these third-party companies. And, as the social media gains more traction, because again, we're not having to advertise stuff really. It's like people know what's out there. They have relationships with the salespeople and the general manager and the fixed ops directors. And like, it's driving people to the store organically instead of having to pay for it. So again, to any dealers out there that are skeptical of it, you have to do it or don't, whatever. I don't care.
Or don't, because somebody else will. That's the point. I think if you're out there watching, listening right now, that's the point me and Austin are making right now. Okay. Look, this is not a matter of if you're going to do it. It's literally a matter of when you're going to do it, because if you don't, your competition will. All right. And we are in the, I'm going to call this, and I said this a handful of podcasts ago, we're in the decade of social selling. All right. I'm amazed at how much selling is going on socially. I mean, my kids are now watching people auction stuff off in the matter of 15 seconds. 15 seconds, they're auction. People are buying stuff. It's social selling. It's being on there and being in front of things. But guys, let me maybe explain this in one other way. Maybe this will kind of drive home is if, what me and Austin are talking about is a bunch of little things. All right. We're not talking about like one big monster thing that you guys had to fundamentally change, right? We're not telling you like remodel your entire showroom and do this, and this, right? And get the most expensive automated pancake machine you can. Actually, I wouldn't be opposed to, but you don't need to. I'm laughing. I know you're laughing in the background, Austin, because I've seen this happen, right? I've actually seen a $10,000 pancake machine in a service department. Anyways, it's little things that make big differences to the experience, and that's what if you're really kind of hearing the underlying thesis of what me and Austin are talking about, right? That is what we're saying. It's little things, which is actually a perfect segue into our next conversation, because me and you want to talk a little bit about AI. And I know it's a buzzword and everyone's talking about it. All right. But there's a series of little things that AI is doing right now that's fundamentally changing the experience, similar to a bunch of little things you can do in social media through storytelling that will ultimately enhance the customer experience. Austin, you got some thoughts on this, so I'm gonna let you kind of kick this off. Like, does AI make the customer experience better? Let's start there.
Yeah, I think I want to tell a story first about Chat GPT came out, I don't know, long time ago.
Yeah.
But a couple of years ago, I didn't really know how to use it. I'm like, I got on there to kind of mess around and see what it was about. I thought it was the dumbest thing in the world. Like, how do I use it? Then I go to a super group meeting and I'm sitting next to a dealer principal. And he's like, hey, have you gotten on Chat GPT? I'm like, I tried, but it's so dumb. He goes, bro, you have to copy a customer's email, paste it in there and say, please respond saying you're sorry, offer them a free oil change, whatever, and just see what happens. I'm like, okay. Because these emails are ones that you grind on for 20, 25 minutes. Because you're trying to come off as positive, professional, whatever.
Authentic, yep.
I pasted in there. It was like the most perfect response ever. And I shipped it out. I'm like, this is how you use AI, right? So AI did not do my job for me. It assisted me in doing my job. It also provided a much better customer experience because it showed empathy. Everything was punctuated correctly. It put the offer in there. It apologized. So like, this is the perfect blend of what I feel like AI has to be. Now, as a fixed ops director, when I look to onboard products, I'm constantly vetting, does this make the customer experience better? And does it make the employee experience better? Because at the end of the day, I don't believe you're ever going to be able to replace relationships. We know we're not going to be able to replace the technicians, first of all.
Nope.
Second of all, as far as service advisors, I do know some groups that have gone to like a kiosk type AI service advisor and they ditch it. So like, I know a lot of groups that are onboarding AI technology and then they're ditching it very quickly right now because I don't think it's quite caught up to making a better customer experience and also making a better employee experience. One of the ones that gets me, and sorry if you have anybody sponsoring the show that does this, but there's a lot of voice AI programs out there that will answer your phone for you. Now, I am completely against AI, again, unless it improves something. So I begrudgingly onboarded this tool because, they promise that you'll never miss a phone call again and it can handle all these things. Well, I was getting kind of tired of it because, I have 2,000, 2,500 phone calls coming through, the departments. And I realized that only about 60% of those were actually converting to appointments. The ones that were actually appointable, only 60% of those. So I'm like, what's happening to the 40% of my customers? I'm listening to the calls. They're hanging up. They're calling the AI not so great words. And I'm getting frustrated with this. So I go to the doctor for my annual physical and I sit down. She doesn't know who I am, what I do. She sees the Roman Auto Group in my shirt. And she goes, "Oh, Roman Auto Group, are you the one responsible for that stupid AI answering service when I called to get my oil changed the other day?" And I looked her dead in the eye. I was like, "Yes, I am." And you know what I'm going to do right after this, right after this appointment? I'm going to go cancel that product because I've been wanting to cancel it for months. And I, no joke, walk back to the office, put the cancellation notice in.
Well, you know what? And I want to add to that because I hear you. And you're not the first person to kind of share something similar story to me. I think in AI companies, if you're out there watching and listening to this, you need to hear this, right? Because it's super important, right? If you come at me, all right, with the intent to replace, all right, one of my people, I'm going to show you the front door as quick as humanly possible, right?
Yeah.
Because I do believe that there is a space, and I think all they actually is to support and to enhance the team, not replace the team, right? So I'm with you, and I think that I've seen a few other voice companies start to come out. I'm down with the voice. I do think a few years ago, man, it was rough. It was tough.
Yeah.
It was like it was bad, right? Like I mean,
It still is,
and it still is. But I think if you approach it from an assistant perspective, versus the replacement of it, that's wildly different, right? Because I know for a fact, like, for the most part, when people are calling to the service, there are only 3 questions we're really looking for. Like, is my car done? All right. And can I bring it in on Tuesday? You know what I mean? And then anything outside of that needs to go to a human. But that's the model. Anyways, I digress. I'll let you go ahead and continue. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that, one of the things we're really good at in the car business, especially as we move up in the hierarchy of the dealership, is forgetting about the customer experience. So great. This AI tool assists my, employees and they don't have to answer the phone, but what does it do to my customers? And that was the case in point of the story where I always tell it about the doctor, because I had to look her in the eye. It was the first thing that she ever said to me. And it was a new doctor. So like she didn't know me. She didn't know what I did. And I had to own up to the fact that I created a terrible customer experience. And she was right there telling me about it. Yep. And that was such a powerful moment for me. Now, we do have a tool right now that we use, which is an AI tool that in the background will send emails out. It sends text messages out. And our customers have actually found favor with that because they're putting off oil changes, right? And so this really just reminds them, hey, your next service is due. Hey, you had some items that were deferred. Would you like to get that handled? Et cetera, et cetera. So that's one that I've onboarded and we've actually seen some success with. Now, does it provide me a ton of ROI from a dollar standpoint? Not really, but it does help, the customers to continue to come back in the drive. And then it also helps the employees, because they don't have to be sending out all these messages mindlessly to all these customers to try to drive people in. So again, the perfect marriage of like some of these AI tools, which I think is possible at some point. I don't want dealers to forget the customer experience and the employee experience. It tends like we lean one way and then we lean the other.
100%.
But that customer experience is so important at the end of the day.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, right? Because I've helped a lot of dealers on board, lots of different technologies over my career, right? And if you're out there watching, if you listen to me talk about stuff in the past, you talked to me how I talk about the 3 big pillars of anything, and that's people, process, and technology. And anytime I've ever met a department that is out of whack in some way or form, either from profitability or it's slow or leadership, it's usually one of those 3 things, right? It's a misalignment in the people, a misalignment in the process, and a misalignment in the technology. It's just those 3 things aren't gelling well together, right? So, to your point, Austin, talking about the customer experience, is I think we keep talking about this, but we don't map out what that experience is first, right? Like we don't say here like this is how we in our heads, this is how we envision. Then we never tested. We just assume it's happening, right? Like, look, no vendor out there, dealers, there's no vendor out there with a magic bullet. There's no easy button to this. Okay, if somebody is approaching to you and telling you that there is an easy button, there's not, right? Best advice I can give anybody out there that's looking at getting to an AI piece of technology is map the experience, map the process that is required to execute that experience, then go to the technology company and just identify which of these processes that it will be able to assist, because no one piece of technology, and never should one piece of technology take over that big thing. But I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on that as well, Austin.
Yeah, I think that, we're really good again at forgetting the customer experience. And so what I always tell our dealers is like, try to buy a car on your website. Try to call your department, to schedule a service appointment. Try to schedule a service appointment online. You will be amazed at what you see, right? Click around on your website. Be a customer. And one of the things I've worked on recently with even the phone calls, and this is down to, we switched phone companies a couple months ago. It's given us a lot more visibility just in terms of some of the reporting and recording. And, there's a little bit of AI that analyzes the phone calls. One thing, like the voicemails, when they come to your email and you just see the script, that saves so much time. Sure. But what I found was I would call into the stores, and I did this personally. I call into the stores, and our phone tree started like this. Thank you for calling Roman Auto Group. If you know your party's extension, you may dial it at any point. Press 1 for service, press 2 for sales. And I just asked myself, who calls a dealership and knows their person's extension? Let's get rid of it. And so, now the phone tree is, thank you for Roman Auto Group, press 1 for service, 2 for sales, 3 for parts, 4, whatever. And it's just like saving the customer that few seconds is so crucial. And so again, be a customer, shop for a car on your website, schedule an oil change. We've had multiple times where you go online to try to schedule an oil change and you're a waiter, and guess what? You can't get in for a couple days. I was like, whoa, wait a second. This is not what we want. We go down to the service manager. Hey, what happened? Oh, I changed some of the settings in the, the service appointment scheduler capacity. Why'd you do that? Right. And so again, I think it's a great check for GM, operators, general managers, dealer principals to be a customer. Don't forget that experience, because those are the people you want to attract, right? You want to attract customers.
100%. And you know what? That's a good indicator of a good leader, by the way. All right. Is that they put themselves in all people's shoes, right? I know we wanted to talk a little bit about leadership, and I think I want to save it for another one, because Austin, I'm pretty sure we're going to do another one of these. But I do think that's that is a good sign of a good leader, right? Is that they put themselves in the role of the customer. They put themselves in the role of the service advisor. They put themselves in the role of the technician, right? And they play that out in their head to see how this entire ecosystem that we call the dealership is fundamentally working, right? And I will say, look, one of the things I've noticed, 2 things actually I will say real quick, is happy employees typically equate to happy customers. All right. Sometimes we talk a lot about the customer experience, and I am all for the customer. I've done hundreds of podcasts on the customer experience, but I do think, that we do need to talk a little bit about the staff experience. Right. And again, that's down to people, process, and technology, right? Do I have the right people? Are they effectively executing the right processes? And do I have the technology to help them support the processes that they're ultimately trying to execute on? And then, guys, and I know we're getting towards the tail end of our conversation, but if you listen to this whole conversation me and Austin talked about, what you've seen is us talk a lot about a lot of little things that ultimately make big big differences. And one thing that I did at my dealership that I started, and I think anybody, if you watch my show, I've talked about this before. All right, I think every dealership needs to host a little things meeting. All right. And I love my little things meeting. It was a bi-weekly meeting that I brought my managers in. They couldn't bring me any big problems because I was safe for other meetings. All right. It was only little things that they were going to execute in a 2-week period that will fundamentally make either the staff or the customer experience that much better. And it could be something as simple like just what Austin was talking about. Just that 3 seconds of the phone message. Like, why the hell are we asking that? Nobody freaking knows it. Boom, let's get rid of it. Those little things equate to really big things. It reminds me of a story, and I'll share real quick, and then I'll get back to you here, Austin. I did something crazy, Austin. You're gonna like this. You're gonna like this one. All right, I took the coffee machine and I put it behind my service advisors. All right, Austin, I gotta be honest with you, man. I thought literally I was gonna have a riot. Like I thought people were I literally thought advisors were gonna quit on me. Like they were like, how dare I add this 90-second process, all right, to their and I challenged them to try to figure out how to make the process better. But the objective is that I didn't want a customer to make their own coffee. All right. I wanted the service advisor to, all right, first question is ask for their name and how they like their coffee. Turn around, hit the buttons, flip back around, fulfill the check-in process before the coffee was completed. So that was my challenge. You can see I might have had a ride on my hands.
Yeah.
But I will say, some of the service advisors, some of them took it as a great challenge, and they started figuring out ways how to make it go faster. They actually started putting notes in the system of how customers would take their coffee. So they actually prep before they even showed up and stuff like this. But I will tell you, this little thing ended up being a very big part of the overall experience that people had at our service department. And I know you've executed things. You've seen results like this. And I would love for you to maybe share one before we finish today's conversation. What is one little thing that you guys changed that you just saw a big result from?
Yeah. I got 2 stories that were kind of related here. I don't know if it's going to answer your question, but the first one, I was a pretty young manager, the service department, and I have 6 or 7 advisors, and I got tired of them not greeting the customer out of the car. They were just sitting in their chairs all the time. So what do you think I did?
Put them outside.
I took the chairs away. I got in early one morning. I just took all the chairs away. I threw away.
Love it.
And it's funny because to that day, we have not had chairs in the Toyota service department. That's been 5 years. And, the other thing was going paperless. And you know what I learned about going paperless? When you unplug the printers, people figure it out. So I think the little things, and I love that you touch on that, because one of the biggest mistakes that managers make are when an employee comes to them with something that they feel like is little, the manager feels like it's little, they table it. And then what happens? The employee has to remind them, then has to remind them again.
Yes.
And then it starts building up in the employee of like, this guy doesn't care because it's something simple, but the manager's thinking, well, I got all these other things to do. I'll get to it, right? Because it's something little. So again, back to your point of, that's something I've always tried to do is execute on the little things, no matter how small they are. Always get back to somebody on something if they ask me about it. And it's better to tell someone no right away than to let it linger for weeks or months or who knows, years at a time.
You're absolutely right. Austin, this has been a really, really fun conversation. And I'm positive this is the first of probably a handful of more conversations me and you are going to do, because I think there's a lot of stuff that we'd like to touch on from a leadership perspective and other things.
Yeah.
But Austin, before I let you go, for everybody watching and listening who have enjoyed this conversation and maybe would like to maybe pick up and maybe pick your brain on a few of the aspects that we've talked about today, what's the best way for someone to connect with you?
Yeah, Dealer Plate Guy on all the socials, as far as Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, dealerplateguy@gmail.com. And then I also have a little website that I put up, so dealerplateguy.com. I mean, if you don't know how to get a hold of me that way, just try it. I don't know. Shoot me a DM. I try to respond to all the DMs. I typically do. So
I love it. I love it. And by the way, you're doing an amazing job building the brand, by the way. I absolutely love that. In fact, that could be another podcast in itself that I think we're going to have to do one of these days. Hey,
I got to ask you one thing. Before we go, I got to ask you one thing.
Shoot.
On your Starbucks cup, do you have writing on it?
I do. Yes.
What does it say?
Yes. Have an amazing day. You are a shining star. Wow.
So I want to make this point before we go, and I don't care if we're over time. I have been absolutely enamored by this Starbucks thing, as somebody in like a higher level of leadership. So they get the new CEO, the guy that came from Chipotle that turned Chipotle around, the stock price went through the roof. What does he do? He's like, let's go back to what we used to do. Let's start writing on cups. There's so many people that say, oh, that's just an exercise of like a leader trying to tell people what to do. But I'm telling you this. I don't go to Starbucks a lot, but I go back every once in a while just to see if they write something on my cup, just to see if they will. I had something crazy happen the other day. My dog, who just turned 8 yesterday, had a surgery that day, and I go to Starbucks, and it says, tell your dog to have a great day on the cup. It's a pre-written message. I know it's pre-written, but you can't make it up. And so, again, going back to the customer service, sometimes it's very forced. Sometimes it's very much a checkbox, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean something to the person on the other side of the cup. Because I know you smiled a little bit when you read that, right?
Absolutely.
But somebody wrote that on every single cup. They wrote it on 100 cups just so they could pre-write it and get the heck out of the way. But it still meant something to you.
Well, and to your point, I mean, that just goes to add to everything we're talking about. These little things make big, big differences. And guys, when we talk about the importance of these little things, look, again, we mentioned it earlier in the podcast, 16 non-franchise entities out there fighting, all right, and going after your customers for their business, right? If you're not using social media and telling the story, if you're not using AI to make things more efficient and better the experience, it's really not a matter of if you are, it's more a matter of when you're going to do it, because everybody's eventually going to do it. But it's these little things that make up fundamentally big differences. Austin, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time today, dude. This has been a really, really, really fun episode to record. For everybody out there watching, listening, one of the biggest compliments you can give myself or Austin is share the show. All right. If you have a friend or a colleague or a manager that needs to see some part of today's conversation, share the show. It means so much to us as content creators. So thank you, everyone, for your time. You all have yourselves an amazing day. Thanks, Austin. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy with Jason podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.